expand your mind, and enrich your world. It's time for another outstanding podcast from ICRT.
Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. I'm Keith Manconi. When we think of the startups that are dominating the world, the really big names, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Facebooks, they're mostly creations of one place, Silicon Valley. And obviously, Silicon Valley is a special place, a lot of bright people there, but there's nothing that says it's the only place on the planet where big ideas can happen. And we know that because right here in Taiwan, right now, big ideas are popping up all the time. And maybe nobody has made a Facebook yet, but successful startups are happening. And today on the show, we're speaking with someone who's helping to make them happen. Anita Huang is known as the captain of an incubator in Taipei, Taiwan Startup Stadium, that is providing a home to a whole bunch of Taiwan-based startups looking to take their businesses global. The project kicked off earlier this year, so we're lucky enough to have Anita in studio with us today to tell us about it. Anita, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Keith. Hello, ICRT.
So when we think about Taiwan as an environment for startups, if I'm a startup and I have some big idea and I have a company that I want to grow here in Taiwan, is this a good place for me to do that? What kind of an environment is Taiwan for that today?
Yeah, I would say Taiwan definitely has the startup sort of DNA and entrepreneurship in our history. There are a lot of makers, a lot of big name manufacturers. We have HTC, we have Acer in our history. And, people are starting up business almost every day. Friends around us start cafes, start bed and breakfast, and doing different things. So indeed, I think Taiwan is welcoming and always be friendly for startup. People want to do their own business. Small business is very vibrant here. However, Taiwan Startup Stadium has the mission to internationalize our startup ecosystem, especially for technology startups, and especially for technology startups that are working in the internet age, meaning software companies, mobile app companies, smart hardware, connected hardware. And these areas are really, really super competitive around the world. So this year, we put together the program with the support from government, National Development Council. It's aimed to really concentrate the resource and concentrate the effort supporting the entrepreneurs in this area.
And so based on what you're just saying, it sounds like there is a bit of a challenge there, bridging that gap between maybe what works in Taiwan and what works on the international stage.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say the challenge is, Taiwan, as we all know, geographically is a very limited market, especially for founders who were born and raised here to think big. And actually have the point of references in terms of consumer needs, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of cultural, is fairly challenged for someone who haven't really lived or educated abroad for some time. So the bridge, I think, exists in many areas. Number one is mindset. We were actually sometimes being named or called as the attempt to build a Silicon Valley in Taiwan. And I would say Silicon Valley is really not to replicate. We start with the mindset, Silicon Valley mindset. Secondly, we actually have several programs that have been launched in the past 6 months' time, trying to connect entrepreneurs at the pragmatic level with the global community. For example, partnership with top 10 startup accelerators in the world, connecting with a lot of international investors, mentors who have startup experience around the world in different markets, in different vertical areas, are pretty much the essential blocks that we are building for the entrepreneurs here.
So if we're just thinking about startups in Taiwan right now, are there any special challenges that they face that maybe somebody in Silicon Valley wouldn't have to worry about? Is there anything that makes it hard to be a startup in Taiwan?
Yeah, I would say startups face different challenges at different point of life. And many of them, when they have somehow built a product from scratch, bootstrapping without much cost, they have a software product built. Usually the next point is how do you actually turn it into business and turn it, into scalable business. And with that attempt to scale, usually a lot of them have funding needs. So like access to investor is definitely something startups founders in Silicon Valley has a lot of access to, whereas Taiwanese founders has limited. And also, I would say the support from ecosystem. If you actually want to talk to people in certain field or with distribution channel, Silicon Valley is a lot more open and also a lot more resourceful in that regard. You can basically connect to experts in many different areas in the technology field.
You've got Stanford right next door.
Exactly. And that might be limited from here. You may be easily put together a biomed symposium and with many experts in Silicon Valley where it can be quite challenging from here. But I'm seeing that, right now, actually connecting people in different places with the same, vertical focus has becoming a lot easier than decades ago. So many of them, especially, with the right mindset and with the right proactiveness, it's actually not that hard to find the right people in different country and actually work on the same product or project. So we are actually, I would say, starting from mindset to think bigger and be more courageous. And actually, we are kicking more entrepreneurs out of the country.
Sending them overseas, getting them exposed.
Yeah. So one program we are putting together, we called it Global Accelerator Bootcamp. So the accelerator that I mentioned before is pretty much seen as the startup MBAs right now. So they are like the grad school for startup. Usually they run in a few months' time with some structured curriculum, with mentorship and exposure to investors.
And so basically you're sending young, just starting out startups to this accelerator, and this is how they're getting the skills that they need to, grow their business.
Yeah, and also getting into top accelerators are very tough. Some of them, acceptance rate is lower than 2%. So we actually pre-train them and also educate them how to choose the right accelerator program for them. Some of them are generalists. Some of them have vertical focus. Some of them have geographic advantage. So really depends on their product and technology that they're building to choose the right one and actually train them better, articulate everything in English for the application process.
So you're preparing these Taiwanese startups that, maybe they've only been in the game for a little while, and you're preparing them to go over to the U.S. and get involved in that whole challenging situation.
Yeah, exactly. So we are actually going to run it pretty soon in November. So you can Google Taiwan Startup Stadium. There will be announcement of the bootcamp coming up.
Now, Taiwan Startup Stadium, it's part of the Ministry of National Development's bigger project called Head Start Taiwan. And that broadly is all about making Taiwan a friendlier place for startups. And a lot of it's like regulatory stuff. A lot of it is, focusing on legal framework type stuff. But you have a very specific focus, and it sounds like in that whole mix, really your role is acting as kind of a connector, making sure that all of these startups get what they need, are connected to the resources they need to succeed.
Yeah, so National Development Council's Head Start Taiwan actually is they have a three-pronged strategy. So number one is actually what you talk about, the regulation, make Taiwan more friendly and updated in terms of legal environment. And number two is investment, collaboration and partnership with some international investors to look more into Taiwanese pipelines for startups. And our role is to operate a startup hub and very international focus. I can actually give an example. Actually, all these policies and investment, at the end of the day, they need startups to implement. So one program that was launched in July is Visa for Entrepreneurs, I think fairly relevant to the ICRT audience. So really, in the past, there are, of course, different visa programs, and this is specific for foreigners who want to start their business in Taiwan. So we actually have a startup that we work with, is a German founder who came to Taiwan for study, MBA in National Zhengzhi University, and stayed on to start his business. So actually, just fairly recent in September, he got his visa for entrepreneurs. Now he can officially stay as an entrepreneur in Taiwan. So that's one example. We actually work with those sister program to make sure our startup gets supported and get the right exposure and right program that's solving their needs.
And so part of what's behind this push, I was speaking to you a little bit before we turned on these mics, part of what's behind this push is kind of anxiety that Taiwan maybe is getting looked over. Taiwan has been so strong in the manufacturing sector for so many years. But now, we're seeing other places in Asia that are really going forward in terms of being able to have entrepreneurship, being able to have new creative ideas come out of there. And people are worried that maybe Taiwan isn't going to be the center of that creativity. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Taiwan definitely have great reputation in making quality products. However, after the 1990s, pretty much the world is shifting toward software, toward technology, toward lean startup, meaning, in the past, you got to build factories and facilities to make things. That's a lot of, Taiwan facility had been about. You got to have fixed asset. But right now, you can pretty much build something or build a business on your computer with codes. So that's actually a big transition for Taiwan's industry structure as well. So we are seeing that there are, so far almost, Taiwanese are using major internet or, mobile platforms. Most of them are actually not from here. So people are using Facebook, using Line, using Google, using YouTube. So there isn't really something major that's been built from here. And those are all big, global, scalable companies. So we do feel that anxiety, with both U.S. and China are two big markets, and even our neighboring APEC countries are pushing very hard for those, software technology driven entrepreneurship. So that's also why, our personal sort of aspiration and anxiety is Taiwan is becoming less and less visible in the global technology trend, and we really need to push harder on that front.
And, you mentioned some of those big tech names. Right now, the way that Taiwan is set up and the way that, we call it this startup ecosystem is looking, do you think it would be possible for something like a Facebook or something like an Uber? Would it be possible for something like that to come out of Taiwan?
I would say we really need to leverage on what we have, our assets and advantage. I won't really go out for dream as big, but I won't say it's impossible. We are seeing some good tractions of startup companies from here. They can be building e-commerce marketplace for Asia region. That's really a big step outside of Taiwan. There is also, a mobile app that got really, really popular that sort of bit all the global players on the App Store. So there is definitely potential. And however, I would say it's the skill set about building something. We feel Taiwanese startup founders are actually quite strong. The technical strengths, technical skills in terms of software and hardware are fairly strong and global, full stack. However, in terms of turning product into scalable business, especially for younger startup founders, a lot of them would need help. But I would say, I wish more people are jumping into it. It's going to be a collective learning process for the community. And we really hope that there will be more and more role models that people are really bold to try. Just being able to try and being, out there to try is a great step ahead.
So it sounds like what you're saying is there is a real skill base here. People know what they're doing, but sometimes the challenge would be scaling the company to a size bigger than the Taiwan market. Could you tell us, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see companies making as they try to expand beyond the Taiwan market?
I would say, especially for expanding beyond Taiwan market, right now a lot of products are built. Well, always remember products are built for someone to use it, consumers and customers. So customers or consumer, no matter it's B2B or B2C here, may not necessarily be the same in terms of their behavioral needs, in terms of their business needs, in terms of their lifestyle can be very different. So that is also why we keep, launching programs to kick entrepreneurs out of the door. You got to really face the consumers. A lot of, coders or technical founders, usually they have imaginations in their mind about their customer needs, but they don't necessarily talk to their customers, engage to their customers enough.
And that could be especially hard if those customers are in a different country.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, we talk about product market fit. PMV is actually pretty much the point that we start working and fine-tuning with a lot of startup founders that we work with. So you have built this, product. Of course, you can do so many things. It's great. But tell us about who you are servicing. What exact issues are you trying to solve? Are they really necessary? Is it too much? Is it really like something that they would need?
And this is something that you focus on with the startups that you work on, is encouraging them to really get to know their audience?
Always test, always engage your customers. And even now, investors would always look at how much validation you've done with your customers or consumers about your product. Are you really solving the right need? Are you really solving it enough? Is there something else? Is there competition that are trying to do the same thing? So really validating the product need is a big issue that we are seeing for Taiwanese founders here, especially when they are imagining about international markets.
And that's part of why you're sending these groups over to the U.S., right? Is so that they actually get that exposure.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, we've surveyed tens of startups right now. I would say in terms of international growth, the U.S. market is still ranked number one. And then Southeast Asia, some cover Japan, and then followed by China. So just 2 weeks ago, we actually put together a group of 12 startups, went to Silicon Valley for a week, partially participated the sort of one of the most famous tech startup conference in the world called TechCrunch Disrupt. So actually they worked day and night and pitched probably like 100 times in 3 days just to different people in the conference. Now they are super pro. And I remember actually a few founders said it's not really about just about pitching or selling your product. It's really being put in that setting within such a concentrated time and get exposed to what's happening in the world, what's happening in different tech fields, what's really the latest trend and what people are looking for.
Right. So there's clearly a set of skills that comes with being good at startups. And so having this startup stadium, it shows clearly that Taiwan is focusing on this, wants to improve, this whole environment. But, focusing on startups, that's not really a new idea. I think a lot of other countries in Asia are doing that as well. Can you talk a little bit about, do you think that Taiwan has an edge in any way that's going to help it? Or is it really facing some stiff competition here?
Yeah, I would say Taiwan, two major strengths. One is the software talents is actually quite strong. People may not know that some of the top companies in the world actually set up a pretty strong R&D presence here. For example, Google actually has, I think, over 300 people in Taiwan. And Google Taiwan team is leading the world's, development for Google Chrome browser, as well as parts of the Android platform development. Out of here. And, Nest Labs is one of the hottest smart home startup in the world right now. And they have 6 development centers around the world. Taiwan is the only one in Asia. Even Tesla or Pebble Watch have parts of their product built in Taiwan. Of course, people know that iPhone and iPad, lots of Apple product is made from by Taiwan manufacturers. So Taiwan, on the other hand, definitely has the hardware reputation, the hardware ecosystem, and quite a number of hardware, smart hardware, now we call it IoT, Internet of Things, entrepreneurs. Most of them actually came with manufacturing background. Some of them are combining their skills in different areas with their manufacturing background. So unlike the hardware entrepreneurs in the U.S., which most of them have limited hardware manufacturing experience. They are, designing product, but usually when it comes to production, they actually need to rely this part of the world or just outsource it.
Right.
But we actually came across a lot of hardware manufacturers, hardware entrepreneurs. They know exactly how to make it. They have lined up factories for it.
Right.
But the idea about getting the product to the market is still biggest challenge for them, really how to sell the product, how to find the right target audience for it. So we are seeing a lot of advantage for Taiwan on this front. And even when we travel overseas, when people know, oh, you're the group from Taiwan, oh, I actually have friends who are building hardware products. So how can we actually get connected with your ecosystem? So I think Taiwan definitely has a role to play in the global innovation ecosystem in terms of building the next generation of smart hardware. And our traditional manufacturing industry also has a lot of catch up and update in order to capture this global trend.
And so you've been doing this, you've been working with these startups for almost a year now. You started earlier this year. What has come out of that so far? Has anything encouraging, any heartwarming stories about what these startups are doing come out of that yet?
Yeah, I can talk about a few. They're all still fairly early, but we are seeing sort of the growth trajectory for those. There is one interesting story that came up 2 weeks ago while we were at the conference. Product called CatFi. It's a smart cat feeder, a hardware product. If you have more than 2 cats in the home, the cat feeder will tell you which cat is eating the most, and maybe 1 or 2 cats are not eating enough. Oh. So actually, they have a cardboard, more like a mock-up to demo at the conference. However, because it's a very crowded, lots of people in the conference, one of the team members actually got tripped and sort of flipped the table to the floor. So it's a big crash on site. So it happened that, TechCrunch is almost the world's leading tech media.
Right.
And,
that's a bad place to flip over your table.
I know. But while we were restoring the table in the poster, a TechCrunch writer happened to walk by and he said, "Are you guys okay? Like, are you, just making sure we are fine, nobody get hurt." And when we actually put up the poster again. So it's a cat product. Tell me about it. And he has 2 cats, and he totally loved the idea. Genius. 20 minutes later, this product got a full-page feature on TechCrunch.com. And, the article also got reposted on their social network. On Twitter, it got, 5.8 million followers.
Oh, man.
On Facebook, their account got something like 2 million likes. So it's all of a sudden world famous.
So you just got to flip your table over at the right time?
We were joking that should we just continue flipping the table?
You're going to create a new trend at these tech meetings.
All of a sudden this product, got mentioned, and actually an in-depth just feature article in the world's leading tech media. So that's pretty unbelievable.
It's how to make it happen. And okay, so you've been working pretty closely with a lot of these tech startups. You've kind of got a ground eye view, you got a bird's eye view, you've got a great perspective to tell what's happening in this area in Taiwan. What's your perspective? Do you feel like it's on an upward trajectory, that it's this is a good time for startups in Taiwan? It's headed in the right direction?
Yeah, I feel that through 6 months of really lightning speed hard work by the team, we definitely start seeing very positive feedback from our community. And I think that's something that matters the most. Taiwanese founders, in a way, I feel need a lot of confidence boost in the global perspective. With China next to us, there are so many giants, so many big players. Where can we see our future? So we are definitely feeling a lot of support. Of course, we feel that it's only baby steps. There are still a lot to work on. We hope more entrepreneurs are willing to really jump on the wagon and, bring their ideas, think bigger beyond Taiwan. And really, we will work with them on, the execution and, on support on the international expansion. So we feel pretty promising.
Well, let's just hope that trajectory continues and these companies just keep growing and growing. We have been speaking today with Anita Huang, who heads the Taiwan Startup Stadium. Anita, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Keith.
You can learn more at startupstadium.tw. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to rate and review this program on iTunes. It really does help us get the word out there. For ICRT, I'm Keith Manconi.